Hi, everyone. I am so excited to share this topic with you guys. I think there is a huge missing piece, especially within conventional medicine, when it comes to women's health and especially our hormones, menstrual problems, fertility issues, the postpartum season, that a lot kind of gets brushed over. Sometimes we think that getting a PMS or an endometriosis, a PCOS, a postpartum depression diagnosis is the end all be all. And that's simply not the case, especially for a lot of women. And as most hair analysis practitioners already know, we know that minerals are typically the root cause behind a lot of issues that many women, children, and men struggle with in America. So, today I'm going to talk about the impact of copper toxicity and some other mineral imbalances and how that has an effect on PMDD, postpartum depression, and how these are typically the missing piece in hormonal health. So, we're going to go over a couple topics today: what PMDD is and the symptoms, common root causes. I'm going to slightly touch on bipolar disorder here, postpartum depression, the copper hormone connection, copper's effect on the nervous system, using HTMA to detect copper toxicity, a couple of case studies from my own clients as well. A little bit about me before we get into this webinar. I am a holistic health practitioner and a doula specializing in functional testing with a special focus on uncovering the root causes of emotional and behavioral challenges. I help individuals and families understand how minerals, nutrition, and lifestyle impact mental health and overall well being. My approach blends functional testing with naturopathic principles to create personalized, practical solutions for better emotional balance and vitality. I'm especially dedicated to empowering parents with tools and insights to support children's mental and behavioral health naturally and to support women in the perinatal period. Postpartum depression affects up to 20% of women globally. In the US, it's around 13%. Postpartum depression typically occurs within the first 3 months, but it can also occur up to 12 months after giving birth. Conventional medicine treats the symptom rather than the root. So, like I said at the beginning, a lot of times doctors will give a diagnosis of postpartum depression, but that doesn't actually tell us why this woman is experiencing postpartum depression to begin with. So, common conventional treatments include therapy or counseling, hormone replacement, and antidepressants. Now, for those of you that do not know, minerals matter for everybody, but minerals really matter for women. Women are biologically and spiritually designed to hold life, whether that's through pregnancy, intuition, or nurturing relationships. However, holding life requires resources, and that's where minerals come in. Minerals, as we know, are the spark plugs of the body. Thank you to Dr. Henry Schroeder for coming up with that. Without them, hormones can't function, enzymes can't activate, and your nervous system cannot regulate. Most women nowadays are facing generational depletion from chronic stress, birth control use, blood loss, so think birth, postpartum menstruation, under eating or dieting, over exercising, environmental toxins, or emotional suppression and trauma. Throughout my time as a hair analysis practitioner, I have found several minerals to tend to be more feminine and masculine in nature. Because this webinar is touching more so on women's health, I am just going to talk about the feminine minerals here. So, minerals like potassium and magnesium are usually very depleted in women. These are known as those feminine minerals. I see these minerals depleted in women, especially mothers that feel like they have to hold it all together while also pushing through exhaustion. So, most of the time, what do we see when we see moms? We see them burn out, they're stressed, they feel like they're holding the weight on their shoulders of the world, of their family. They are chronically tired and fatigued, but they have to push and keep going. And most of these women push themselves to burnout. We know that women are uniquely affected by hormones, stress, pregnancy, and birth control, all of which can disrupt our minerals. We cannot balance our minerals without balancing, or we cannot balance our hormones without balancing our minerals first. So, some common disruptors that are seen are birth control, whether that is the pill, the patch, the IUD, or the shot, chronic stress, modern diets. So, think vegan diets, those are typically very high in copper, low in zinc. The copper IUD, as I said, depleted soil, copper sulfate, which is a pesticide, even sprayed on organic crops. Copper pipes and copper toxicity can also be passed in utero. I've had the honor of working with a couple of families where we've been able to trace copper toxicity back because, as we know, we will pass mineral patterns and even heavy metal patterns on to our babies. Potassium is the supportive mineral of the thyroid and of the nervous system. It helps keep your cells hydrated, your mood balanced, and your blood sugar steady. It can be known as an emotional mineral, and this is because when it's low, women will typically feel numb, they'll feel flat, they might be tearful, and overall just dysregulated. Women tend to burn through potassium during periods of stress, especially emotional stress, due to its close ties to aldosterone and the adrenal activity. Spiritually, potassium supports softness, receptiveness, connection, and it helps us feel. It's a very fluid mineral. Without it, we become hardened, disconnected, overwhelmed, overreactive, and a shell of ourselves. So, kind of think like the calcium shell here in some cases. Magnesium is known as the helpmate, and this is because it's essential for well over 800 enzyme reactions within the body. It calms the brain, relaxes the muscles, balances blood sugar, and supports sleep and the circadian rhythm. It buffers cortisol and supports progesterone, especially the luteal phase of women's cycles. Most women are deficient in magnesium. Energetically speaking, magnesium helps us regulate the nervous system, brings the body out of fight or flight, and allows us to rest. So without it, we are likely constantly doing, striving, fixing, going, rather than relaxing and feeling, which goes against a woman's nature biological clock and kind of just along with the society or the narrative in society to promote burnout, especially in women. Phosphorus is tied to energy, metabolism, and cellular function. It is needed for ATP, bone health, and nervous system support. Low phosphorus can indicate a low life force, low joy, and deep exhaustion, which is common in burnout and even chronic dieting. This person might feel emotionally and physically tired, depressed, or even scared. This person is typically stuck in a parasympathetic dominant state whenever they have a high calcium phosphorus ratio. And lastly, we have copper, which is deeply tied to the feminine, estrogen, intuition, and emotional depth. It is necessary for collagen, reproduction, and dopamine regulation. Copper is ruled by Venus, which is related to love, beauty, fertility, and sensuality. Energetically speaking, copper supports empathy, connection, and feminine flow. However, if copper becomes toxic inside the body, that's going to lead to chaos, overwhelm, disconnection from the self, disconnection from our feminine energy, rage, anxiety, and detachment. So, overall, these four minerals tell me how a woman's current state is. Potassium tells me how she's coping. Magnesium tells me how she's or how much she's been holding. Copper tells me how she processes emotion and trauma. I've found a lot of women to dump copper during periods of dumping trauma or working through trauma or stress. And phosphorus tells me how much life force she has in the tank. There's several reasons why women lose minerals easily. I've kind of already touched on this before. So, our monthly cycles, hormone fluctuations, the emotional burden or stress, processed foods, birth control, whether that be the pill, the patch, the shot, the IUD, poor gut health, lack of sun exposure, and trauma. Now, in today's world, we are typically told to suppress our symptoms with a medication, but symptoms, especially in terms of our monthly cycle, are a sign from the body. Low magnesium can indicate cramping, irritability, and sugar cravings. Low potassium can indicate constipation, bloating, swelling, or just feeling a little bit puffy. Overwhelm, crying, fatigue, brain fog, and heart palpitations. Having high copper to low zinc can indicate estrogen dominance, breast tenderness, rage, and anxiety, or being in a toxic feminine state. The calcium shell can indicate emotional numbness, disconnection from the body, and anxiety. Low manganese could be related to excessive bleeding or even blood clots. Low chromium can indicate blood sugar dysregulation, triggering sugar cravings and low blood sugar symptoms. Low phosphorus can be tied to fatigue before or during your period or the luteal phase. And low sodium and potassium can indicate low energy, dizziness, and blood sugar crashes. In terms of ovulation disruption, ovulation takes energy, hormone signaling, and mineral coordination. We know that potassium is needed for FSH and LH communication. Without enough potassium, ovulation can be delayed or absent. Low sodium indicates weak adrenal output, leading to poor communication between the hypothalamus and the ovaries. Low magnesium reduces pituitary signaling and increases stress hormones like cortisol, which is going to suppress ovulation. And then if calcium is displaced, then that's going to block cellular communication and dulls the necessary rise in LH. So think of ovulation as an electrical event, and mineral depletion is not going to create that spark for it to happen properly or at all. In terms of low progesterone, which many women experience, post ovulation, your body relies on strong adrenal and ovarian function to produce progesterone. Zinc is essential for luteal phase hormone production. A deficiency can lead to a thin uterine lining and short luteal phases. Vitamin B6 is necessary for the corpus luteum function and converting cholesterol into progesterone. Magnesium is needed to regulate the estrogen to progesterone ratio. High copper opposes progesterone and contributes to estrogen dominance because it's going to deplete that zinc. And low sodium levels lead to adrenal weakness and reduced progesterone output, which many women are in a chronic adrenal depleted or adrenal fatigued state. So, without minerals, we don't have progesterone, which is going to lead to PMS, short cycles, or spotting. Low libido is another common symptom that many women experience. Libido is a combination of neurotransmitters, sex hormones, and adrenal health balance. So, if we have low sodium and potassium, that's going to equal burnout, low dopamine, and just no sexual desire. The calcium shell is going to cause a disconnection from one's partner, even apathy, emotional numbing. They just aren't going to feel connected. Low zinc is critical for testosterone and progesterone production, so it's critical for libido. And high copper can drive anxious tension and irritability, also leading to no sexual desire. Having a strong libido is a marker of overall vitality. We know that minerals power vitality. So if you have a client that is struggling with their libido, this is definitely a sign. I think society has pushed having no libido as just kind of like a normalized female thing, and it's not. It is a huge marker that there is an imbalance going on within the body that we need to look at deeper. Poor egg quality. So, eggs need time, energy, and protection from oxidative stress. Low magnesium increases oxidative stress. Zinc and selenium are necessary for DNA integrity and antioxidant defense. Phosphorus is needed for energy, ATP, during egg maturation. Excess copper can lead to increased oxidative stress, damaging eggs. And we cannot technically supplement our way to good egg quality without looking at minerals first. I think a lot of people will blindly take a prenatal thinking that it's going to help them just magically get pregnant, and that's just not the case for a lot of women. Minerals play a huge role in conception. Your body will not prioritize reproduction if it doesn't feel safe, and minerals determine that safety signal. Low sodium and potassium can indicate adrenal fatigue, weak signaling from the hypothalamus, pituitary ovarian axis. Low magnesium can indicate poor egg release, uterine spasms, poor blood sugar regulation. The more spikes in insulin we have, the less likely we are to conceive. And low zinc can cause poor egg quality, low testosterone, weak immune defense, increased risk of implantation failure. And high copper can cause estrogen dominance, autoimmune flares, and histamine reactions. So please keep in mind that a body in survival mode is not going to feel safe to conceive. Our bodies have to feel safe in order to conceive. And if we have copper toxicity present, mineral toxicity, mold, gut dysbiosis, histamine issues, all of those things are going to contribute to nervous system dysregulation, creating unsafety within our body and leading to difficulty conceiving. I do want to quickly touch on insulin resistance. So, elevated insulin equals confused ovaries. Ovaries mistake high insulin for LH, contributing to disrupted ovulation and egg maturation. Studies have found that one sugary drink per day reduces conception rates in women by 25% and reduces sperm quality in men by 33%. Those are pretty big numbers. IVF and egg quality can be linked to high sugar intake before IVF, which is going to lead to lower egg quality, plus high blood glucose, which is going to lead to increased sperm DNA damage and hormone imbalances. If we have high insulin, that will typically indicate low testosterone, increased estrogen, and decreased sperm motility, linked to erectile dysfunction and DNA fragmentation. So, what do we need in order to reverse insulin resistance? We need minerals. So, magnesium is key for insulin sensitivity. A deficiency can lead to blood sugar spikes, those sugar cravings, things like that. Chromium improves how cells respond to insulin. Potassium helps move glucose into the cells and prevents blood sugar crashes. Sodium stabilizes adrenal response, which directly affects blood sugar regulation. Calcium and phosphorus are necessary for hormone signaling and glucose transportation. Oftentimes, I will have clients that come to me following either a pro metabolic, an ancestral diet, or they're just eating overall really, really well balanced meals, whole foods diet, and they get their hair test back. And one symptom that they note on their health history form is blood sugar. Um, Issues, blood sugar crashes, they feel like they might have low blood sugar, and they don't understand why, because they wake up, they have a really good breakfast, they have a balanced lunch, they have a balanced dinner, they don't typically snack. If they do have a snack, it's a small balanced snack. And so they ask me, I'm doing all of the things right on paper. I'm drinking enough water, I don't drink sodas, I don't drink anything high in sugar unless I make sure that I'm having a protein, a healthy carb, and a healthy fat with it. So why am I having blood sugar imbalances? And most importantly, why can I still not get pregnant? And the answer lies within their minerals. We'll get their mineral test back, and they will have a lot of mineral imbalances going on with these minerals that are listed, contributing to blood sugar issues. So, blood sugar regulation isn't just about avoiding sugar entirely or eating balanced meals. You can eat all the balanced meals you want, but unless you have the foundations for those minerals that your body needs to use insulin properly and support reproductive health, then we're not going to see those positive changes. In terms of miscarriages often stem from inflammation, poor implantation, hormone imbalances, methylation issues, gut dysbiosis, or even bacteria in the vaginal microbiome, which I don't typically see a lot of practitioners talking about. High copper and low zinc can increase the risk for histamine responses and estrogen overload, leading to uterine inflammation. Low B6, we know that B6 is needed for progesterone synthesis. Low selenium and manganese can lead to increased oxidative stress, genetic mutations, or poor placental development. Low chromium is going to lead to blood sugar instability, which is a recipe for disaster, infertility, and pregnancy. And low magnesium leads to increased uterine contractility and increased miscarriage risk. Poor egg and sperm quality. So, if a man has low zinc, low selenium, or low magnesium, that can lead to poor sperm morphology, DNA fragmentation. Men need mineral support too. So, oftentimes I will have women come to me saying, there's something wrong with me, I can't get pregnant. And we always need to look at the partner as well. A woman might not be infertile, she just might be mineral depleted. So instead of asking, why can't I get pregnant? The question now becomes, what does my body need to feel safe and supported enough to create and sustain life? And this is why mineral testing matters. HTMA testing is used to assess mineral status. It gives us a window into the soul and into the body, and it shows us where women are stuck and specifically where they are craving nourishment, especially in terms of creating life. Now, to get into PMDD, if you do not know what PMDD is, it stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. This is not to be confused with PMS. Some women will say that PMDD is like PMS on steroids for them. It is a debilitating condition affecting mood, energy, and daily life for some women. It's not just a rare condition. It does affect around 1.6% of women worldwide. That might seem like a small percentage, but when you put it into perspective, that is about 31 million women globally struggling with severe mood swings, anxiety, rage, and depression every single month. And the worst part is that many of them don't even know that they have PMDD. They've been told it's just bad PMS, or they're overreacting, or it's just a part of being a woman. and a doctor might just write them a prescription for an antidepressant and send them along their way. We hear about PMS all the time, right? It's almost normalized. So, the difference between PMS and PMDD is that PMDD is life disrupting. It affects work, relationships, and mental health in a way that PMS never does. Many women with PMDD report feeling like a completely different person during the luteal phase, or usually those 2 weeks leading up to their bleed. They report anxiety, suicidal thoughts, uncontrollable anger, and deep depression that lifts pretty much overnight once their period starts. And so that's the defining factor, is that it's cyclical, it's severe, and it can be neurological. And like I said at the beginning of this webinar, one of the most alarming facts about PMDD is it significantly increases the risk of suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Research has shown that women with PMDD are at a much higher risk of self harm, suicide attempts, and hospitalization due to severe emotional distress. And yet, PMDD remains underdiagnosed and misunderstood in conventional medicine. Now, many women are misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. PMDD is not just a mental health issue, but it's a biochemical and neurological disorder rooted in hormone and mineral imbalances. So, if we don't address the mineral imbalances or that copper estrogen connection, then we are missing a critical piece of the puzzle. Each year, women are misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder when in reality, they have copper toxicity and mineral imbalances driving their symptoms. One of the reasons for this misdiagnosis is because of the effect that copper has on potassium within the body. So, our brains have 80 billion brain cells called neurons. Each neuron works by getting a small electric charge, which is controlled by more than 200 genes. Environmental toxins can change how these genes work, altering the brain's chemistry, causing problems like mania. Neurons need the right voltage to work properly, and this voltage is managed by ion channels and helper cells called glial cells. When a neuron fires, it releases potassium. We have a lot more potassium inside our cells than outside. This is why blood testing for minerals, specifically potassium, isn't accurate, because about 98% of potassium is found within the cells, not the blood. So when neurons fire, they lose potassium. So it's kind of like a battery losing a charge. In people with bipolar disorder, this process can cause the brain to run low on serotonin. And so low serotonin levels lead to depression, which explains the mood swings between mania and depression. The brain's electrical activity is crucial for people with bipolar disorder, and it all starts with minerals like potassium. Unfortunately, modern medicine overlooks the importance of minerals and focuses primarily on neurotransmitters like serotonin. Potassium is the precursor to serotonin and plays a role in maintaining the brain's electrical balance. Without enough potassium, the brain can't produce serotonin properly, which can lead to bipolar like symptoms. And we also know that copper will deplete potassium and drive up soft tissue calcification. I have worked with a handful of PMDD clients that were, I like to say, kind of misdiagnosed with bipolar. They had very low potassium levels, and this was contributing those manic symptoms before their period started. Moving on to the copper and PMDD connection. Copper and estrogen go hand in hand. So when estrogen rises, copper rises with it and can accumulate within the body, usually the brain and the liver, driving up common PMDD symptoms, also related to estrogen dominance. It is going to suppress progesterone production. Excess copper overstimulates the nervous system, as we know, leading to increased cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. Copper depletes zinc and magnesium, which are crucial for balancing dopamine and serotonin, which are key players in mood regulation. And it's also going to cause a burden on the liver. So, a lot of copper toxic women might report that they are constipated, they're bloated, they feel like every time they eat, they just feel really sluggish and tired afterwards. They might have an issue in bile production. And so the way that we clear excess copper is through our bowels, so it's through pooping. So we should be pooping ideally 1 to 3 times a day. If we are not, or if we are constipated, then all of that excess copper cannot fully come out of the body and it's just going to get reabsorbed. So, why do we see PMDD and elevated copper levels? So, birth control use, Pregnancy and postpartum, that estrogen surge leads to copper retention, and some copper levels don't return to normal in some women during pregnancy and postpartum. Stress is going to weaken the adrenals, and if we don't have our adrenals functioning properly, then we are not going to be able to clear copper effectively. Vegan and vegetarian diets are low in zinc and high in copper. Copper pipes, it can be passed in utero, and trauma. Moving on to postpartum depression. Postpartum depression and copper toxicity do go hand in hand, and this is because estrogen and copper levels rise throughout pregnancy. In the case that a woman's body cannot clear it properly by the third trimester or after birth, then copper is going to get stored in the body. Like I said, the brain or the liver, and that is when symptoms result. Estrogen dominance equals copper retention. If we have low potassium and if we have low potassium and low sodium, that's going to lead to no energy, panic, overwhelm. Low magnesium is going to lead to insomnia and guilt, and a calcium shell is going to cause a woman to feel disconnected from her baby and even her husband, and just overall emotional numbness. Getting into a couple of case studies, we're going to first start with a PMDD client. This client was 34 years old. Her symptoms began 1 month after the copper IUD. She had symptoms of depression, fatigue, anxiety, vertigo, mood swings, headaches, overactive thoughts, insomnia, emotional numbness, PMDD, bloating, feeling of loss of control, suicidal thoughts, hypothyroidism, paranoia, and disassociation. On her hair test, we can see that she had a calcium shell of 415, copper toxicity, a poor tolerance to stress, her potassium was depleted, and she had blood sugar imbalances with that high calcium magnesium ratio and what looks like a chromium loss pattern here. A bipolar case study. This is a 30-year-old woman. Her symptoms began with her first menstrual cycle. She reported to have headaches, 4 miscarriages, anger, manic episodes, depression. She felt like she was riding what she called the emotional roller coaster all the time. And she did have a lot of emotional and physical trauma as a very young child, which can also indicate that really high calcium shell. So we got her hair test back, and we found that she had a calcium shell, a magnesium shell, an elevated stress response, very depleted zinc, copper toxicity, and sluggish adrenals with that low sodium magnesium ratio. In the last case study here, we have a case of postpartum depression. This was also a 30-year-old woman. Her symptoms began with her first menstrual cycle as well. She never received a PMDD diagnosis, but she did chronically struggle with PMS her entire life. She experienced postpartum depression and anxiety, fatigue, vision changes, low mood, panic, disassociation, and low blood sugar. On her HTMA, we found elevated calcium, aligning with that disassociation and low mood, not feeling like herself. She had a magnesium loss pattern, which can contribute to racing thoughts, inability to calm down, and panic attacks. She had a low sodium and potassium ratio, which is going to lead to that burnout, poor stress tolerance, fatigue, anxiety, and low blood sugar. She also had low potassium, leading to emotional instability, unavailable copper due to those sluggish adrenals, driving postpartum depression with that low sodium and magnesium ratio. And she did have a zinc loss, which was driving those vision changes. To quickly touch on conventional versus holistic approaches here, we know that most traditional treatments really miss the mark when it comes to women's health. Most women are prescribed SSRIs or antidepressants to mask those symptoms, but they don't actually fix the root cause of why those symptoms are happening to begin with. Most women are blindly put on birth control, which is going to raise copper levels and deplete calming minerals even more. Blood tests miss copper toxicity and the true value of mineral levels, because keep in mind that blood remains homeostatic for a reason, and blood pulls from mineral reserves like the cells or the bones. And so this is why we never want to rely on blood work alone, except in the cases of testing iron, when it comes to mineral testing. Hair tissue mineral analysis testing is the only way to accurately see mineral levels within the body from the last 4 months, as well as how the body is using those minerals for each function, like the adrenals, our hormones, digestion, metabolism, mental health, thyroid, etc. So, supporting copper detoxification and balancing hormones naturally. Strengthen the foundation. So, a lot of times we are not just doing the basic things that we can do, like getting out in the sun, going outside, and grounding. You don't need red light therapy. You don't need a grounding mat. Go touch the earth, go touch grass. Strengthen the foundation of your minerals. So, focus on the 4 macro minerals first. You can do this a lot through food. Mineral balancing before detoxing. A lot of times people want to start step 5 and 6 before starting step 1. And step 1 is supporting minerals first and foremost. We also need to support the liver, gut health, and bile production. We have to make sure that we are pooping out all of these toxins so they are not constantly getting reabsorbed within the body. Reduce exposure. So if somebody is on birth control, we need to encourage to get off of birth control. We need to inform people the ill effects of what these drugs have on women's bodies and what they will have an impact on their child's body if they ever wish to conceive later on down the road. Reduce exposure of Wi-Fi and 5G as well. Turn off your Wi-Fi router at night. You can get a remote now that you just hit the button and it turns off, and then hit the button again and it turns on first thing in the morning when you need it. Increase zinc naturally through whole foods, so red meat, oysters, pumpkin seeds. Adrenal and circadian rhythm support. Like I said before, our society prioritizes what works for men. Men operate on a 24-hour hormonal cycle. They wake up, they've got that boosted testosterone, they are ready to hit the ground running. Women are not like that. Women might need, if they're in their luteal phase or on their period, they might need to lay in bed for 20 minutes and just let their body slowly wake up. Let your body wake up with the sun. Start winding down with the sun. We need to follow Earth's biological clock because it will also relate with our own internal biological clock as well. Sodium and potassium. A lot of people fear sodium. As long as we are using a high quality salt, there really should be nothing to fear. There really should be nothing to fear here. Regular hair analysis testing to monitor copper movement and to assess mineral status. Once I've been working one-on-one with a client for at least 6 to 8 months, and they are doing really well, and they're seeing an improvement in their symptoms, and we're seeing the improvement on paper with their hair test, then sometimes that person could go maybe 3 times a year getting a hair test. It really kind of just depends. It's very bio individual here. And raw carrot salads. Dr. Ray Peat developed the raw carrot salad because he found that the fibers in carrots could actually pull out excess estrogen from the body. So, a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, as long as it's sourced correctly, or coconut oil, a pinch of red mint salt, and a shredded raw carrot is something that is pretty inexpensive to add into your daily routine. Eat it before you have lunch, eat it before you have dinner. Add in some oranges, make some homemade orange juice, add in some coconut water. Coconut water can be a little bit expensive, so I'd always opt for watermelon juice or orange juice. And these are going to be really easy ways to get in some extra potassium throughout the day. I so appreciate you guys listening to this webinar. It's a topic that I am very passionate about, bringing more awareness to women's health, women's hormones, perinatal care. If you would like to keep up with me, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Instagram and TikTok, my handle is the same at the KP Richards. Facebook, it is Lively Rooted Family Wellness Center. I do have a podcast, Lively Rooted, the podcast, which is going to be launching very soon. My website is www.livelyrooted.com, or you can send me an email, kp@livelyrooted.com. If you would like to work on me, I do offer HTMA and other functional testing, one-on-one consultations, 3 or 6 month packages. If you head to that website, there will be a link to book a discovery call with me, or you can order your hair test to get started. I hope you guys have enjoyed this webinar, and I thank you again for watching.